whatever.
Good,
Hi.
good.
Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live on the Swiss journey, integrating family planning and career ambitions. I'm joined today by two beautiful people, Sabina Reggioli and Sabine Hutchinson, to share more around this important topic for the next 30 minutes as we're live together with you. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to add them to this LinkedIn Live, and we have some time spare towards the end to see if there's anything that we can help answer together. Before we jump into the questions, I'd first like to invite my co-presenters here to introduce themselves. Sabina, would you like to go first?
Yes, with pleasure. So thank you for inviting me today. My name is Sabina Reggioli. I'm Italian originally, but I'm working in Switzerland since 2012. And since 2019, I'm part of the Merck group based here in Switzerland. And on top of my daily responsibility, which is in the supply network operations, I'm also the D&I leader in Switzerland for Merck.
Thank you. Sabine, would you like to go next?
Yes, thanks very much. Also, a pleasure to be here today, and happy that we're all on this journey together. We've seen each other quite a few times now, and I'm sure we're going to see each other a lot more. So excited about that. I am also a transplant. I'm an American living in Germany now for 26 years. I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry and the clinical research side of the business that entire time. And along with my volunteer role as the EMEA president for the HB8, I also am the CEO and co-founder of Zeus Plus, a consulting company that supports biotech and pharmaceutical organizations.
Thank you so much, Sabina and Sabine, for being with us today. And for those of you who don't already know me, my name is Natalie Wilkins, and I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Thriving Talent. We're a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting and training company headquartered in Switzerland. As you can tell from my accent, also a transplant from UK and Greece, living in Switzerland since 2009 and working with my colleagues on this very important topic since 2015. And delighted to be with Sabine and Sabina today to help us explore this topic of how we can integrate family planning and career ambitions within Switzerland. Just to set the scene in terms of what are we talking about with regards to Family Forward and who is Family Forward? I'd like to just take us to the beginning where when we talk about Family Forward, this is a joint partnership between Merck, Thriving Talent, HBA, and the Consumer Forum magazine in Switzerland, which was founded in April earlier this year. And this topic and this mission is all around how important the path of family planning is and how it's a very deeply personal and multifaceted adventure. As you can see here on screen, there's so many different factors that are intertwined, different threads of hope, biology, financial planning, and for many people, it's not a straightforward journey. And so in collaboration with the partners, our goal is to shed light on personal experiences as well as the broader societal impact of family planning, including the impact this has on companies, on employers. And we aim to raise awareness and break down taboos. So what does that mean? We have these partners that you can see here on screen, and these partners are here for different reasons. And one of the important statistics that always jumped out at me is that 1 in 5 couples are really facing challenges to start a family in Switzerland. And this is probably no different to any other part of the world. But in Switzerland in particular, it's not a straightforward journey for people struggling with that. And so with the partners, the goal is to shed light on these personal experiences, and we want to share today a little bit more about that in terms of what can individuals and what can companies and employers do to be able to navigate those journeys together. So when we talk about family planning, we thought about the partners here on the LinkedIn Live together with me today in terms of the different stories and angles that they can bring to this conversation. And maybe starting with Sabina, And you have a personal story connected to this journey that I think represents you as an individual, as well as you representing Merck on this LinkedIn Live today. Would you like to share a little bit more about that?
Yes, sure. So in our case, I am married with a woman, and back in 2012, when I moved to Switzerland, we wanted to build a family together. Being based both in Switzerland, our medical support is in Switzerland, even though we are frontalier in France. But at that time, we could not access any fertility program, neither in Switzerland nor in France. Very few countries, especially in the north of Europe and Iberia, typically, were the countries where a lesbian couple could access for having a fertility treatment with an external donor. So in my case, at that time, when we decided to build a family, it was very important to be transparent with my company, because every now and then we had to jump to Denmark, which was the country of choice for us in terms of fertility treatment. So that meant that already going through the fertility process was quite heavy, because you need to go and do the visits, you need to take the hormones, you need to take close to the pickup of the eggs. You need to go every single day to the gynecologist to see the size of your eggs before. Then you jump on a plane. In 24 hours, you need to be in a different country to do the pickup. So it was a quite heavy journey. And it was important for me to be transparent with my company at the time, because psychologically also it's heavy. So you need to know that you can do that treatment, and that not putting at stake your job, you can achieve the family objective. Yeah. Being a homoparental couple, of course, it was quite expected that we would go through a fertility treatment in a fertility clinic, not being a heterosexual couple. But as I have been talking over the past years about my experience, more and more heterosexual couples or representative of the couples have come to me saying, thank you for being open, because I did it, but I never talked about it because I felt ashamed. So effectively, going back to your initial comment, talking about it is helping reducing the concept of bias, that this going through fertility treatment is a weakness. It's not, you're not losing anything. It's not that you are not less a parent because you were supported by a medical structure rather than having it natural. The thing also that I also want to share is that do not underestimate the psychological burden, because already the fact that you enter a fertility treatment puts you a bit under pressure. Hormone treatments, especially for women, are not easy. There are women that support them pretty well, that are women like my wife that went overstimulated twice. So for her, it was really a burden to take hormones. So also within the journey, and assuming that the journey then is positive, because not always the case, it's positive at the end, it is a psychologically burden for the couple or for the family. So it's important for me to share all my experience to really make people feel we can do it. It's not a weakness, but we need to be prepared as well. It's not a walk in the park, but we need to be prepared. In our case, we were lucky. Today, we are blessed with 2 children. We got 1 each. But it took us also 5 years between the first and the second to come, because despite we did several fertility treatment, none of them was successful in between those 5 years. So it's an important topic to say, by entering the fertility treatment, it's not a given that you become pregnant at the first stage.
Yeah. And I think what you described there, Sabina, is, like you say, that mental burden that individuals in the couple have to carry, whatever the constellation of family they come from, you know, whether it's hetero or homosexual, it's a really, really difficult journey for the individuals involved. And we don't speak about it openly enough, as we know, in our environment, especially in Switzerland, it's a very big taboo for many people. And so by shedding light on those experiences, just like you have, I think that really helps to open things up, people to get curious, people to ask questions, because this isn't just about supporting people who have decided they want to start a family, right? This is also for people earlier down the road who haven't even started thinking about family planning yet, and what the consequences are for you when you decide to delay family planning because of your career, for example. And maybe touching on that, Sabine, if you think about it from the employer's point of view, there's the mental burden that their employees are going through on that journey when they decide to start it. But there's also something around, what is it that we're able to provide to people who haven't even thought about it yet? Especially as we need to, especially as companies are even planning about how do we retain and keep women in the organizations and grow our leadership pipeline to be more gender balanced. Could you maybe share a little bit about why you think employers should prioritize supporting employees on this?
Yes, absolutely. Sure, absolutely. And I think, this has been an interesting journey for me personally, as we've started on this as the Family First. And the HBA is committed to this topic because we definitely see that the attitudes towards gender health are still, unfortunately, very outdated. The way that we're looking at this topic is it needs to be modernized. We need to move into being much more open, discussing, removing the taboos. And one of the things that I think is also very important is that, as I've been part of this process, because I also struggled, my husband and I struggled to have children, and this was so many years ago, and we're seeing that the educational piece is so important. And I think that that's one of the reasons too why the HBA is very much involved in this, is because we believe that we can help with the educational piece of this journey as well. Had I been potentially educated differently, I could have handled and looked for other options. And we just feel that it's so important to do this. And I think you mentioned as well, the younger generation. It's not just necessarily when you're ready to have children that you should start thinking about it. It's also important to know what your options are early on in case you do find yourself struggling. Yeah. And that moves, I think, into your question around what can employers to do. We're in a wild market right now, also with employees and organizations. And we see also that employees are looking for organizations that have high values, high morals, and actually support initiatives like this. I mean, I think Sabina can also talk a lot to this point from the Merck perspective, where she works. But we're seeing, and we've done quite a few surveys for around employees as well. And that's what we hear. They want to be part of an organization that puts gender health first. And that it's a topic that's discussed openly, be it fertility issues, menopause, there are lots of other topics around gender health. And so if organizations don't take this step, really their ability to hire and retain top talent, it will be impacted. We're seeing this in the feedback from individuals. So 100% a very important topic to promote the employee well-being and enhance retention and attraction.
Yeah, thanks, Sabine. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we're facing here in Switzerland is how this particular topic is still seen as, by many people, as very much a private matter. Right. And so the questions we're often hearing when bringing this up in organizations or with individuals is, why should we even talk about this at work? Sabina, what's your view on that? How would you respond to such a question?
So the first thing, building a bit on my personal experience, is to give a bit, having the possibility to talk about it in your work environment. And I'm not talking about broadly the entire institution, but I'm talking more with your managers, with your peers, is enabling you to create a safe space where people can understand why you struggle in some cases, why you might need to go out at a certain time of the day because you need to take a specific injection at the same hour every single day, why you might disappear for a few days because you need to go and do the pickup of the ambulance, but also very simply to understand sometimes also the mood swings that are coming from the hormones, because again, we are talking about hormones, we are talking about something that is impacting you. And also in the case of failure, what is coming out, to be empathic to the fact that the person might have been sad because it was not successful. Adding a benefit like fertility treatment per se is a financial help. Let's be very clear. That is the initial stage. But the fact that we give a benefit means that you can start talking about it, because the company starts talking. It's not coming from the employee, it's coming from the company. So in the case of Merck, this benefit is anonymous. So that means that nobody in the local organization needs to be aware. So the employee can reach out and fundamentally get refunded directly through the, let's say, accounts payable organization. But already the fact that we talk about the benefit, talk about the fact that there are also testimonials about it, is starting putting less pressure on the couples to say that they are struggling to be pregnant, or that they are planning to take, for example, a treatment. And as you're saying, there are also some women that decide, who do not have a partner at the early age of the 30s, to freeze their eggs to wait for the right one to come. That can also be a journey. And just be more comfortable that this is a normal practice, nothing very special, and that we respect everybody's choice.
Yeah. And that sounds like it's very much aligned with Merck's values. And,
yes.
and that this plays really well and ties in really well with what they stand for as an organization. And if you think about, like you say, this is also about the journey to the family planning point, and some people are starting to opt for egg freezing. And I remember clearly from the Family Forward launch event back in April, someone from the Salesforce organization shared their own personal journey about opting to do that, and how Salesforce's values as an organization, as an employer, supported them, because it wasn't just about providing that financial support to someone who's ready to start a family, but it was also equitable. The design of it was equitable so that it supported anyone who had, as you said, Sabine, this interest in gender health and securing that family future that they want to have for themselves earlier in their career. And is there anything that you would add to that, Sabine, in terms of what Sabine has just shared around, how companies are implementing these supportive measures? Is there any examples that you've heard maybe from other HBA partners or companies that you come into contact with?
Yes, well, we're seeing more and more organizations, again, going back to this idea of the topics being taboo, because Sabina, you're so right. If we don't talk about this, we're never going to take steps forward. And it's so important that the organizations create a culture and an environment where it is comfortable. And maybe not everyone will talk about it in an entire group, but that they at least know that they can go to individuals within the organization to have this conversation. And that way you can adapt it to the individual, how comfortable they feel talking about this topic. And I believe also one of the points that is so valuable in this discussion is that this idea of retaining employees. And we live and work in organizations where we want to foster diversity and inclusion. And I think that that's also a piece that will become more and more evident as we start to have these conversations, because we're going to keep people at the table that are diverse, because they're going to stay within the organization, because the sense of loyalty and the support and the culture and the values that they feel.
Absolutely. And I think what you've just shared also, reflecting on a story that we heard at the launch event in April from a colleague of mine, Jarek Kumechko, who's also in a partnership with another man, and they decided to start a family through surrogacy, and they had that similar journey to yours, Sabina, but different, having to go stateside to the US to find the right person to be the surrogate of their future baby, and the journey that they went through. And as you described, Sabina, he was able to open up to his manager about this and to get that understanding and support that he needed as he went through this journey, because it wasn't a straight road, as you can imagine. And so going back to this question about, well, what can employers do? Definitely financial benefits are one way, but as I think you mentioned, Sabina, more importantly, creating that safe space, And building on your point, Sabine, if it's truly inclusive and equitable, it's how can we start to understand what this journey can look like for different types of people? And so far, we've heard Sabina's journey. I mentioned Yarek, who identifies as a man, and I think for men, especially going forward, this is also going to become an important topic for them, because this 1 in 5 statistic doesn't just affect women; it affects men and women. And sometimes it isn't the woman who's struggling with infertility; it's the man. And how do we support everyone through this? Of course, women can often feel the heavier burden of this journey, especially if we're the ones who are going to carry the embryo, because of the demands it's going to have on our body, and our own health going through that journey. But it is something that affects everyone, and that's something that's very important to remember as we think about inclusion. I'm going to just share a comment that came through in the chat from Alina Favre. She's thanking you, Sabina, for sharing your story. And the question here is, have you ever experienced any negative reaction or lack of support whilst you were going through that journey?
So in my personal experience, no. The support was very high. Of course, I had a very transparent conversation also with my management to say, I'm not putting at stake my work results, but I'm going to manage my time in a different way. I also had the opportunity to work from abroad because I had to stay in Copenhagen for 5 days when I did the embryo transfer. So I had very transparent conversation about how to manage the work objectives. So no, I must say, both me and my wife, we were both in the same company at the time. We got very strong support. Also, when unfortunately I happened to have how do you call it, a loss, and I had to finish in hospital for a week. They knew. The first thing is that they knew. So they knew what is coming from, why it was coming from. But I always had very strong support.
Yeah, that's really, really positive to hear. I know that during the launch event, we heard from one of the IVF clinics in Baden, and it's a small IVF clinic, but they run surveys to understand what challenges their patients are facing as they go through this journey. And I remember the statistic that they shared, that 25 to 30% of people are thinking of quitting their job because they don't feel that they can get the support that they need from employers. And I think that's an important statistic to remember if you're a manager leading a team, or if you're working in HR or a leader, senior leader of a business, that's quite a scary number, isn't it? Sabina, have you heard of any negative stories around people going through this journey and how they were not supported?
No, fortunately not. I think the only negative side is that there's been too little conversation around this topic. So I've never heard anyone share a story that they were negatively impacted in their career or their career advancement, or also on a personal level that they felt attacked or any kind of negative experience at all. Maybe I'd like to just add a point, because I think often smaller organizations, like what Merck does, is obviously amazing. Did some research online as well. And there are other organizations that are also doing a lot for their employees. Starbucks offers this, Spotify, so across industries. But you don't have to pay for IVF treatments to be a supportive company for your employees. There are lots of ways that you can do things. And even smaller organizations can encourage a culture of open discussions. I'm proud also at our company, we're very small. We can't afford to pay for those types of treatments, but we have an employee, and she also wants to have her eggs frozen, and she's decided to go to Argentina, where she's from originally, to do it because the costs are more affordable. But we've completely opened up and said, of course you can work from there. We'll work with hours. We'll do whatever we can to support that. So I think that's for leaders at smaller organizations, build a culture of openness where individuals can speak freely. And I think that's already a very positive step moving forward. on this topic.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Sabine. And I can see that my other co-founder, co-CEO, Deborah Croft, has joined us live, and she's also left a message in the chat about, that the importance of aligning policies, processes, and leadership behaviors, and really creating that safe space, like you said, that with the example you just shared, that it's not you're not giving someone a special favor who's going through this. It's really about showing support for individuals' private lives and finding ways, creative ways to making it work. It doesn't have to be the financial support that you described, Sabina, but as something as simple as, of course, you can travel to Argentina. Of course, you can be flexible with your hours as we work through this and support you on this journey. And I think that maybe, if I may, we've got 5 minutes left, and I don't think we've had any questions, any other questions added yet. But if you do have any, please do flag them here. Just to maybe shed a bit more light around, well, what is Family Forward planning to do? We've launched the initiative back in April. So what's coming up? So I'm going to share slides a little longer to explain what that looks like. I'm just going to change things around so that everyone can read them clearly as well. So there's 3 strategic pillars that Family Forward are working on. The first is around generating awareness and breaking down taboos, such as this LinkedIn Live, because it's important to get this message out there. We'll have a recording following this LinkedIn Live, and we can spread the word to other people around Switzerland. And as we've been pointing to, it's really important to reduce workplace barriers. So really being able to support and champion people going through those journeys and creating that safe space. It can be through policy, it can be through benefits, but at the very least, as you've said, it's about making that safe space just to say, I need help, I'm going through this journey. I don't want to quit, and I'm fully still on board with my role and achieving my results, but how can we make this work as I go through this journey? And then the third pillar that we're working on is generating insights and improve options and access within Switzerland. And so, having said that, just to get a little bit more concrete about what this means, is on the insights and access, Merck will be sponsoring a white paper to be able to unveil some of the hard data of how people experience this journey within Switzerland, but then bringing in other experts to make recommendations on how can we turn this around from a societal and a political point of view, because there's so much employers and individuals can do, but the rest is actually linked to systems here in Switzerland. And then going back to reducing workplace barriers, it's, if you're an employer listening to this, so if you're working in an organization, you think, actually, this is a really important topic that we need to make more visible within our company, then please get in touch with us, because we're ready to come and speak, to help you facilitate those conversations internally so that you can start to explore this topic. Especially, I think, if you're working on inclusion and equity within your organization, this is an important one to plan for. And then if you are an individual or a healthcare professional and you'd like to get involved in breaking some of these taboos and making this information more accessible to people, then do get in touch, and we have other ways to support you through that. Now, I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I want to go back to you, Sabina. Is there anything else that you think we need to add to this conversation today to help people think about this?
I would like only to add the final comment from my side. So we are talking about here touching the construction of a family. We see it from the angle of fertility in this case, but let's not also underestimate the importance to support those couples or families that struggle because of sicknesses as well. Because we have not talked about it, but there are couples that unfortunately go through heavy sicknesses, for example, cancer, that needs to put on hold the possibility to create a family until the cure is not completed. And having access to these benefits or support will enable them also to feel a bit relieved that they can concentrate on one thing and know that they can postpone it to a later stage, also the family. Sometimes we tend to look at things with only one angle. But if we think about inclusivity is for every kind of person with its own individuality. And that's the reason why the more we talk about what can the healthcare system offer, fundamentally we create more inclusivity for every single individual in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really great point. And Sabine, anything that you would like to add?
I can just echo that, Sabina. That is so true. And I believe, we're talking about having conversations, but our goals are bigger. We want to have conversations, but we want to make policy change. We want to encourage organizations also to have this be an active part of their culture and the values that they have. So share your stories, talk, get in touch also if you're interested. I think that Natalie, to your point, we're happy to come and present, have topics. We have fantastic individuals that are open to be part of panels and to try to engage more in awareness. So I think that's a key piece. Tell your story.
Absolutely. Let's keep sharing stories and resources and best practices. I think that's what we're here joined up in thought to do together. And thank you to everyone for dialing into this LinkedIn Live and learning a little bit more about this important topic. I'd like to thank again Sabina and Sabine for joining us over this LinkedIn Live and sharing their own stories and insights. And we look forward to hearing from you and getting connected around this in the future. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Natalie.